By the way, that's Bill Nojay, who's a psycho legislator from, and I don't know any other way to describe him, legislator from Rochester. On the line right now is Tony Picente, the county executive, and your opportunity to respond.
Well, I mean, some of this isn't even worth responding to, Bill. I mean, I guess a couple things that immediately, it's amazing that, it always amazes me that people who do not know me, do not live here, have nothing to do with this county, then turn around and go on the air and talk about all the things that I'm doing. And evidently, this guy thinks are what I did last week in terms of this, spent the whole week, I think he said, going twisting arms and going to town committees, which is really laughable. And the other thing is that politicians are the ones who don't like politics the most when these things come out, and they should understand the business of politics better than anyone. But,
can I ask?
Go ahead. You can ask anything.
Did you lobby for Steve Wells?
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm the elected. He says I'm an employee of the county. No, I'm the county executive who happens to be elected, and for 3 times. And this whole thing about the Cuomo endorsement, it's like they're breaking it for the first time. I mean, it's like it was this big secret. It happened 2 years ago. Move on. I mean, I guess I don't know what else they want to say about it, but yep. Let me just say this, because last year I ran for office. I went before the county committee. I went before the very New Hartford committee that Ms. Tenney sits on, and went in front of them, stood in front of them, said, "Let me have it. Tell me what talked about my record as I do each year. Any questions, any issues, anything you want to talk about?" Not one word, Bill, because that everybody's a coward when they come face to face with you. So I went before that committee. I went before the county committee. But the other thing is, I never forced the county committee or anybody and the county Republicans in that committee 2 years ago to do anything or support Andrew Cuomo. That was a decision I made on my own, by myself, and for the betterment of this county. I didn't bring the county committee into it, so they can stir around all the pots and think that say that this was a Cuomo move. That's ridiculous. I mean, that is the furthest thing, and you can ask Pete Sobel that. I guess represented myself as anything from. Other than a Republican county executive in that ad. So that's ridiculous.
I would ask, is there anybody that's going to come out and say he threatened, my son works for the county, and he said, if I don't vote this way, that my kid could lose his job?
I'm not even going to dignify that with an answer.
Because that's the implication.
Who knows me? I mean, that's what it sounds like, and the word thug and everything else is something. I guess it must be an awful thing to be a Republican assemblyman, that you don't have anything to do all day other than just kind of go on the radio, and I guess it must be tough being in the assembly on the Republican side because there's not much to do. So you take to the airwaves and you beat up people, but that you don't even know anything about. But the real point here is Steve Wells is a businessman, is a successful businessman, and yes, he did contribute, but as Donald Trump admitted, contributing to Democrats himself in business, but he's also the finance chairman of the state committee. I mean, nobody talks about that.
State Republican committee.
He also Republican state committee. Yeah. He also worked tirelessly. I mean, one of his best friends is John Katko, to get John Katko elected to the Republican, to the Republican seat in Onondaga, and Elise Stefanik in the North Country, and he's done more when he was a prosecutor in terms of his record of conservative politics or whatever you want to call it, which is ridiculous because you have to work with everybody, and that's what this election is about. And I said this, and I made this very clear where I was headed when I stepped out of the race, that I wanted to see someone that could bring people together, that could work across party lines, that could really be a voice for the area and not for one specific segment of a political ideology.
Well,
I I endorsed him 2 weeks ago before this committee. Yeah. So when people call and ask who are you for, who are you supporting, yes, I'm supporting Steve Wells. And when others asked, and when we talked to people about it on the committee, yes, we did. This is the business. This is what it's about.
Well, wasn't there?
Why she's surprised about that.
In fairness,
I really don't understand that.
Wasn't there lobbying on? I mean, that's really what goes on here. There's lobbying on both sides.
Of course there is.
And the other issue,
George Phillips got votes. Martin Babbitt got votes. I didn't. There were people within the party and people who are not committee people lobbying for those votes as well. So that's another ridiculous statement that I don't have any right to be there. I mean,
and explain, if you could,
Republican
how this went only through one ballot. Explain that. On the first ballot.
The first ballot, it's a weighted vote. So the committee members, they take the roll call of the people, or they take the votes of the people there, or the people who have voted by proxy ballot, which, in other words, you sign your vote over to another committee member that can vote on your behalf, and you tell them who you want to vote for. And the vote is a weighted vote based on the amount of Republicans in the district that you represent as a committee person. So that's how the weighted vote of it. So somebody may vote and be able to cast for 100 votes. Some may have 200. Some may have 40. It varies throughout the cities and towns and
were you surprised
in terms of the districts?
Were you just surprised that it was decided on the first ballot, or is that irrelevant?
I was, because whenever you have four, when you had four candidates in the room, actually there was a fifth one that didn't receive a nomination, but you had four candidates that were in the room that had been working hard over the last several weeks to get themselves known throughout the committee and in the process, and so it is surprising, because I think in some of the other counties it went to a second or even a third vote. I'm not sure about that.
And to be completely fair here, what do you say to people who say, how could you endorse someone from out of Oneida County? What do you say to those people?
Well, I think we get trapped into that all the time, and look, would I have preferred to have someone that I could support from Oneida County? Of course, and there were other candidates out there that I was interested in and would have supported had they chosen to run. Clearly, people like a Ray Meyer, or even Joe Griffo and others, possibly in there. But it's been clear. I mean, I couldn't support someone who has done nothing for this area other than criticize that of which others have done to work so hard to accomplish. And on top of which, what has been accomplished. It's not about going down and being like a Republican member of the Assembly and just rattle the cages. It's about getting things done. And I want somebody in that office that can help us get things done. So to sacrifice the Oneida County aspect of it for Madison County, we had Don Mitchell represented this region for a number of years in Congress. He did an outstanding job. We were fortunate to have guys like Sherry Bowler, like Mike Arcuri and Richard Hanna, who represented us well, and those were guys who reached across and were able to do that. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone to help us get the job done here and move us forward. And that's why I support Steve, because I really believe he is the best choice.
County Executive Tony Picente, thanks for the time. Appreciate you responding to this whole situation.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Okay.